Hi, George Kurtz here. We're getting ready to go to Road America, which is our favorite track in the entire country. It's a fantastic spot. We hope that you follow us online at our website and keep tabs on our racing. Should be really exciting, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
I'm really glad that all of you were able to join us and hope that you enjoyed it as much as we did. And we look forward to seeing you again in the future at future virtual CXOs.
Great battle, great time here in Sonoma. Really glad to be back on the podium. But we got some work to do. We're going to get the next step here soon. So looking forward, we've got Road America in a couple of weeks. We're going to look at the car. We're going to see what we can do to make it even faster, and we're going to come back stronger than ever.
This is CJ Moses, driver of the 04 AWS CrowdStrike Honda TCR car. We're here at the iconic Road America Raceway. Coming up the front, straight up the hill, you see it's a large increase in altitude. Here we go across start finish, heading down into a very high speed turn 1, where we'll actually be decreasing down through 5th and 4th gear, take 4th gear, a little bit of braking, then back to the throttle, around carrying speed, using all the runoff here to this outside, moving down into what we call turn 3. We'll actually get a little bit of brake in here, get to 3rd gear, accelerate out off the corner. This is a very important turn because as we're going down this little short chute here, it turns into a longer straightaway that leads us down into turn 5. This is going under the Sargento Bridge. We're wide open, grabbing gears, going all the way through all the gears, all the way up into 6th gear. It's an important braking zone that you're down here. We're actually going to brake right at the just past the 300 marker, all the way down to 2nd gear in order to climb the hill, going up into turn 6. Here I am passing a BMW that's in another class. We go inside here, we're actually 3rd gear, back to the throttle, let the car normally rotate out a little bit further, but with that car there we had to delay. Down there into turn 7, a slight lift back straight to the throttle, carrying all the way down into turn 8. We're going to take this down into 2nd gear, turn inside using all the curbing, accelerate off this, grab 3rd gear, get set up for this carousel where we're going to be doing a 180-degree turn all the way around. We're using as much of the throttle as we can, keeping the car lined up to go. Back to full throttle because here we go down another short chute straight. We're moving to the iconic kink. We're going to go ahead here off the throttle, back onto the throttle, and carry speed through these 2 concrete walls at 120 miles an hour. We're coming down into an iconic turn as well, Canada corner, where we're moving all the way into 6th gear. This is the fastest part of the track for us between here and turn 5. And we're going to get down to 3rd gear, back to the throttle, missed that one a little bit, should have been on the inside a little bit more. Up into turn 13, just a slight lift, back to the throttle, carrying it all the way up and over the hill, carrying on through all the way back to turn 13, just get the car pointed, back to through turn 14, full throttle, or accelerating back up the hill. One of the things you can see here is in the in-car shot, you can actually see the technology that the Honda TCR car has. You notice that I never shifted a gear by moving my hand off the steering wheel. I actually have paddle shifting. So I have the ability just to go ahead and click off the up shifts and down shifts without ever taking my hands off the wheel.
All right, guys, welcome to Road America this weekend. Today we had 2 sessions on track. We started with qualifying this morning and it was really wet, so a little bit challenging on track, but fortunately I was able to come out on poles, the fastest car in the touring car A class, so really happy about that. Great starting position. Then completely different weather conditions for the race, so dried out. We had to put dry tires on the car and complete different driving strategy, so a little bit different conditions today, but fortunately we came out on top in the race and pulled out that win for CrowdStrike Racing.
Hey, CJ here, driver of the 04 AWS CrowdStrike Honda TCR car. We started out this morning with an interesting situation in that it was raining cats and dogs when we qualified. As we got up to the pre-grid, the sun came out, the clouds all cleared, and the next thing we know, we were out there on, sitting there on rain tires, ready to go out there on a dry track. So one of the benefits of actually being associated with a GT3 team, just like Colin and George have, is the ability to pull into the pits and get your tires changed really quickly. So we went ahead and all 3 of the DXDT cars lined up, and we were able to get our tires changed inside of a couple of minutes and went out fully set up for a dry setup. And we went out and we raced, moved up from 7th into 5th place, and then we had a double yellow flag. And unfortunately, as part of that, we actually had some of the other class cars mixed in with us, and on the restart, there's a rule that you can't go past cars before start finish, and I had double the horsepower, but still couldn't do so without breaking the rules, so I stayed behind and got boxed in for about 2 or 3 turns, but made my way through and ended up finishing there in 5th place. So not a bad day overall. Shiny side up, brought the car home, and we're ready to go at it again tomorrow.
Hey guys, Colin Brown here, driver of the 04 DXDT CrowdStrike Mercedes, and just give you a little overcap of the day. Obviously, downpouring rain this morning. For us, it was good. It gave us a chance to go out and work on some of the pit lane things. Even in the rain, we can still work on the different timing that we have to execute during these races on pit lane. Really dial in the electronic side of things that help us when we're supposed to leave the pit lane. Some of our speed settings, things like that. We really worked on a lot in that morning session in the rain, which was really helpful. Every single second matters here with what we're doing. So dialed that in. Second practice was good. I think we ended up P2. A bit of strategy and when we use tires and when we save tires. We ended up saving a set of tires, I think, for the next round that comes up. So I feel really good about that. We had good pace. Our car was good. These guys have been doing a great job. I really feel well prepared and ready for tomorrow.
There's no shortage of twisting, winding highway near Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. Driving past farmland, forests, and factories, the landscape has changed little since 1952, when racing in the streets became an annual occasion. In 1955, a new highway was built, a racetrack, one that retains the familiar experience of driving through the countryside. Decades later, the smell of rubber and race fuel give way at sundown to campfires, s'mores, and brats the way it always has.
It was at Road Atlanta, a fairly high...
There's Yellowstone, there's Yosemite, but for fans of American motorsport, the bucket list attraction is Road America, the National Park of Speed. Welcome to CrowdStrike Racing's YouTube channel. My name is Kyle Heyer, joined this afternoon by CJ Moses. CJ, this is going to be a fun one today, but we've got a lot of racing ahead of us. And welcome for the CrowdStrike friends and family. It's a special stream just for you, featuring our own CrowdStrike drivers. It'll be CJ today and Kevin Boehm tomorrow. And AWS and CrowdStrike, they share a 360-degree relationship, CJ. CrowdStrike runs on the AWS cloud, as does SRO America. AWS is the title presenter for the Global SRO Series GT World Challenge, powered by AWS. And for 13 years, AWS has been the world's most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud platform, offering over 175 featured cloud computing services. Last year, the firm entered in a new collaboration that saw AWS become the official cloud and machine learning partner for SRO America, as well as a series partner of Pirelli, GT4 America, and TC America. We got more to cover, CJ, but we're about ready to go racing here today at Road America.
Yeah, absolutely. We looks like we're getting ready to form up here. I see the pace car still has its lights on, so I think they're still trying to get everything. Oh, there they go. They're off now. So we're getting ready to come around turn 13 to 14 and get this party started.
Double file. We're going to rack them up and stack them up and go racing for GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. 4 miles at Road America, 14 turns, lots of elevation change. It's narrow, 32 feet wide. Had some of the guys from the track yesterday tell me that was because when they paved the track back in 1955, a standard road grader was 16 feet. They made 2 passes. That was it. And that's what you get to Road America. Time to go racing for GT World Challenge at Road America. Thanks for joining us here on CrowdStrike Racing. Green flag flies, and we're racing at the National Park of Speed. And already, the Acura NSX, driven by Shelby Blackstock, pulls ahead. But here comes the Mercedes on the inside, side by side, towards turn number 1 contact, and sideways. Oh, no! And a disastrous start for DXTT Racing. Both cars involved in an incident down in turn number 1, and that is the worst thing that could happen for a race team, CJ.
Yeah, that's the worst feeling. Earlier today, I actually got into a little fender bender with my own teammate, and I felt horrible. And in this case, I'm sure George and David both are not feeling so good. It looks like David was able to get going, and George looks to be high-centered in the gravel.
Yeah, obviously we saw the one car, the black Mercedes, get a little bit off in the grass, and in the braking zone there, CJ, you're kind of bouncing on that left rear tire. When you're on the grass like that, the car just loops it, and around goes the car. But there's a lot of discussion leaving Sonoma about the 2 team cars and the dramatic way that race ended, which ended up with the 04 jumping 2 spots post-race.
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about the penalty that the 04 car, George's car, had actually gotten, and come to find out later on after final review, they had gotten a speeding ticket, if you will, speeding penalty for going 55 kilometers an hour. In final review and comparing the data that we had as well as all the data that the SRO had, it was actually found that the car was sitting still on pit lane when a GPS signal, errant one, said it was going 55 kilometers an hour. So with that data cleared, they were able to move up to 2 positions up into second place within class.
All right, so we're racing for 90 minutes, and obviously the first 15 seconds didn't go so great, but there's a lot of racing left, so let's not panic just yet about the CrowdStrike Racing and DXTT cars. Out up front, Shelby Blackstock in the Acura NSX GT3. Behind them, a Mercedes, a Ferrari, and a Porsche. 4 different cars. We have a full course yellow on track, and that's likely for the CrowdStrike car buried in the gravel there in turn number 1. Here's a look at it.
Yeah. So you have David working out. He got a great start, so he's moving inside. So now you have George there. Now I'm sure George doesn't know that that David's right there.
Yeah.
And once you get a little bit into the grass, you have to remember these cars are north of 500 horsepower, and now they're in braking. As soon as they get down in the space, you can see that David's on the brakes, George is there, and cars under brake are easy to get a little loose.
And we were talking literally seconds before the green flag dropped about how narrow the racetrack is, 32 feet wide. We put 3 GT3 spec race cars side by side. There's just not that much space out there.
Yeah, these aren't Yugos. They're pretty wide cars in their own right, and you put 3 of them side by side, as well as everybody's crabbing's trying to stay to the left because the turn goes to the right, so you want as much room to make as big an arc as you can.
So while we got a little bit of time here with the full course yellow, let's talk about you a little bit. Obviously,
Sure.
You're the Deputy Chief Information Security Officer of Amazon Web Services. That's a long title. But you're also a driver in TC America in a TCR spec machine.
Absolutely.
And you've been racing this weekend so far. How have things been going?
So just literally just got out of the car. We were the race just before this earlier. And I ended up in 3rd place. And Kevin Boehm, my teammate that's running in TCA, the other class, he actually won his class. So far it's been a pretty good weekend for CrowdStrike Racing and DXDT. Unfortunately, we see George here in the kitty litter. But we'll have an opportunity here. Looks like David's coming in for a pit as well.
Yeah, now actually, so the full course yellow might be a bit of a saving grace here because there shouldn't be a lot of damage on these cars. George kind of backed it into the tire barriers. Those are soft enough that there shouldn't be a lot of body work needed to be done on these cars. So as long as they stay on the lead lap or close to it, there shouldn't be a lot that needs to be done. There's a little bit of damage on the front grille here, but aerodynamically, is that a huge deal?
I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. I mean, obviously they'll be able to feel it, but as long as the main splitter on the bottom there is in place and it looks like the 2 canards on both sides are there. The big thing with these Mercedes, though, is that there's some very fragile radiators that are up inside that grille. It does look like they seem to be able to take care of that. Let's see what the back end of George's car looks like. He did back it in a good bit. The diffuser is definitely
this a very
displaced, but we'll
close
see.
look over. They've been shaking the wheels to make sure that the suspension
if
is
the rest
okay.
of this car is good, we'll be good.
The big concern right now is to get him out before he loses a lap. A lot of eyes on where the safety car is at the moment. He's down off the jacks and about to send him out. The initial reaction from the crew member guys was that everything was okay, but they wanted to give it a second and third look just to make sure. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if we saw them come back in once they get back up to speed and make sure that they stay in front of the pace car and keep on the leader lap.
So George pulls away from turn one there, and again, you mentioned the damage to the rear of that car. Shouldn't be a huge deal as long as nothing broke, but you can see that rear bumper is certainly shortened up a good bit.
Yeah, the left rear portion of the bumper looks like it's detached. That's the one that now David actually got into, detached it, and then it looks like it, backs it into the tire wall. The biggest part of that rear end is going to be the diffuser, that carbon fiber piece that's back there, because that actually allows the air to smoothly depart the car. Without that, you actually get all kinds of turbulence, and it'll upset the balance on the car quite badly. But we'll see. DXDT is a professional crew, so if there's anything they can do to get that car taken care of, I'm sure George will come in, they'll check it out, see what they can do, and maybe get that rear bumper so that it's attached a little bit better, probably with some Barabons, some high-speed duct tape, essentially, and see if they're able to rejoin us.
Yeah, so DXCT Racing does a great job, but obviously the CrowdStrike car, driven by George Kurtz and Colin Brown, Colin's still yet to get in the car. He'll get in later in the race. We'll talk a little bit about CrowdStrike as well. For those that are here that don't know, CrowdStrike is the official internet and cloud security provider of SRO America, and is the presenting sponsor of the Road America Race Weekend. The home race for actually, that was at Sonoma here, but it looks like we've got a restart coming. That was a quick yellow. We got the cars cleaned up. We're going to go back racing here, CJ.
Yeah, that's very quick. I think they wanted to get back going when they got the cars, especially since they didn't have to tow George back. They just set them free. Once the track's clear, they're able to go ahead and go back green. We're back green. Looks like Shelby Blackstock is out front, followed there by the other Mercedes.
And so we got another mixture here of classifications this weekend. There are the GT3 cars, and there's also the GT2 spec cars out there as well. There's
Yeah, essentially what we have is a race within a race, because we have different classes, of course. Obviously, we have different Pro-Am style things within Pro-Am or Silver within GT3, but then even further beyond that, we actually have the GT sports cars, or sports club racing, which are mostly, in this case, GT2 cars. GT2 cars being similar to GT3, a little bit more horsepower, or a good bit more horsepower, with less aerodynamics on them, so they're faster in the straightaways, but they're not able to take the turns as fast. In this case, the GT Sports Club cars are actually starting towards the rear of the field in order to allow the GT3 cars, which are traditionally faster over the course of a lap, to stay out front and run more towards the overall. The Sports Club Racing actually also is only, it's about 40 minutes, is a 40-minute race within a 90-minute race. So at the 40-minute mark, the cars that are running GT Sports Club will take their own checker flag and come in, while the rest of the GT3 cars continue on in their race.
So now we've got the restart underway. Blackstock starts to pull away and leads a little bit over the second place Mercedes, number 33. And as they head down towards Canada Corner, we'll talk about this racetrack a little bit. We didn't get a great chance to show you their track, but we'll take a look now. Road America, 4.048 miles, 14 turns around here, CJ. And this is a fast place. They call it the National Park of Speed because your average velocity around this joint is real fast.
Yeah, it's one of the courses that has a lot of straightaway combined by a lot of of twists and turns. So you're able to get to really high speeds. We're looking at in a GT3 car, somewhere in the neighborhood of high 160s, where you're actually going quite a bit. In a TCR car like I run, I think our top speed's just shy of 150, so 148 miles an hour. Where a GT2 car, you could be approaching, close to 180.
We were talking about the kink earlier. That's one of the more challenging parts of the track. Would you call it the most challenging part of the track, or is there somewhere else that you find that might be even more difficult?
There are others that I believe are more difficult, but there are none where if you make a mistake, you'll pay more dearly than in the kink. If you make a mistake going into the kink, it will chew you up and spit you out. It's like a pinball machine in there between two concrete walls, and you'll come out and be lucky if you have any panels on your car that you haven't touch the concrete wall with.
And we're looking at turn 5 right now. That's where Blackstock is headed. A huge braking zone down here. Great passing opportunity as well. And that's one thing about Road America that might be different than Sonoma. Almost every corner here is a place you can make a pass.
Yeah, although it's reasonably narrow, the nice thing is that you do have a lot of areas where you have short shoot straights going into heavy braking zones, and anytime you have a heavy braking zone, you have an opportunity for passing because you can try to brake later. You can see they're getting George's car duct taped, if you will, back together. That diffuser on the rear being that kind of messed up is definitely going to limit their ability or how fast they can go. Handling will be compromised, but CrowdStrike and AWS and DXDT Racing, CrowdStrike Racing, never say die. He's going to go out there and drive the wheels off of that thing, both him and Colin, and try to see. They're a couple laps down, but you never know what can happen in these races, so you never give up.
And also the point situation coming into this race. Let's not forget that after the results at Sonoma were kind of shuffled post-race, the 04 was leading the points by one in their category.
Yeah.
So this is a big deal. They need to get that car back out there and start clicking those laps back. It's going to be tricky, but a couple full course yellows might help.
Yeah, and you never know what else happens during the race because there's only 6 cars that are running in the GT3 class. If someone else later on has a little, God forbid, a little schmozzle out there and wrecks and isn't able to continue by George getting out there and Colin getting out there and continuing the race, they can actually overtake and gain points towards that championship.
And Colin's probably sitting in pit lane right now, just devastated by the way that this race started. And we got a chance to talk with his dad, Jeff, the other day. He's a great guy. Tell me about the stories of Colin as a kid practicing in the backyard go-kart track. Where did it all start for you? When was the first time you climbed into a race car?
Actually, a race car. I ended up, my racing career, if you will, started when I bought an Audi back in it was a 2000 model Audi A4, and it came with a Audi Club or a Quattro Club membership back then. And I went back or got invited to a track event at VIR when they just first reopened up, I should say. And I went to that and had a great time with the Audi Club. And they basically set the hook, and ever since then I've kind of needed a 12-step program that I couldn't find to get out of motorsports.
Well, I think we all sort of need that at this point. But obviously this series, also for those that are watching that don't know what sports car racing is, everyone knows about the Indy 500, the Daytona 500. Those are the races that people know about. NASCAR, IndyCar, sports car racing is sort of its own thing. Cars that look a little bit more like what you'd see on the road.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the thing is that it's very identifiable because all of the cars that you see here, there are street variants that drive around some neighborhoods, maybe not mine all the time, but the AMG that you see going by there, there's a very similar GTS version, GTR version. Obviously, the Acura NSX, various versions of that from the 90s on forward. So within this class, one of the nice things is that although NASCAR says they have stock cars, there's nothing stock about them. They're not even stock appearing anymore. Nothing against NASCAR, but those of us that actually look for racing of cars that you could win on Sunday and go buy one on Monday, quite honestly, many of these race cars are customer racing cars, meaning that they're run by privateers like George and David and myself that are supported by the manufacturer of the car, but not an actual manufacturer-run team.
Well, I think that's even more true with the TC Challenge, the series that you run. I mean, think about even the TC8 cars. We had Kevin. We have a video of Kevin explaining what a TC car is, and maybe we'll get to that at some point later today. But think about those cars. Those are stock engine, stock transmission, and obviously some suspension and roll cage and weight reduction. But for better or for worse, it's pretty much what you just roll off out of the parking lot with at a dealership.
Absolutely. That's the thing is that but for safety, safety equipment within a TCA car, they're very stock. Add a little bit of brakes and stuff like that in order to make them able to last for a race. And otherwise, it's a very stock car that in a pinch, I wouldn't do it, but you could drive it down to the grocery store and get yourself a couple bags and be able to still make it home.
So we're about 15 minutes into this race so far. Blackstock pulling away in the NSX, and whoop, a little off track there in turn 5. That's a place where you want to carry a lot of speed, and running wide's pretty easy to do over there.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going downhill and you're going wide open. You're at the fastest part of the track, quite honestly, and you want to brake really late at the same time. Down at the bottom of a valley by braking really late. I'm talking, in a TCR car, we're braking at the 225 foot marker, which is really late. You're basically down into the turn, and you have to get down to second gear and rotate around and then launch up a hill. Going up to 6 is actually a hill on the other side. So it is a great overtaking area because a lot of people don't like to brake too late down through there, because if you miss it, then you're off going straight, and there's some tire barriers out there that can collect you.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a whole lot of fun. Obviously, we've got the leader is the Racer's Edge Motorsports Acura NSX, and right in behind them is the Windward Racing Mercedes, the number 33, and they're kind of in tow right now. And these are two very different looking race cars, the NSX and the Mercedes AMG GT3. Obviously, George and Colin are in a similar looking Mercedes. I think they've got the Evo variant of it.
Yes.
And there was some discussion, I think, of the two DXTT racing cars at Sonoma. One of the cars, the sister car, the 63, was upgraded to the Evo kit, whereas the 04 was purchased as an Evo kit car.
Well, that is the case as of Sonoma, but this week, when they got here to Road America, they had a brand new DXDT. The black car that you just saw that went off into the kitty litter with George is a brand new car that's of less than a week old.
Wow, okay.
They were putting the decals on it when we got here, prepped it and got it out there, and that car for Pro-Am class was actually on pole this morning. So Ryan Dial went out there and dropped a monster lap. So between the two, they really were really fast. So those cars are on equal footing. I don't believe, by looking at the front of this one, that this one is an Evo, but regardless, still very fast. Difference between these two cars, at least on the track, is that the Mercedes still will be quicker in the twisty bits. It's kind of weird to say because it looks like it's big and bulky, but that's where it actually makes up its speed using the aero, where the Acura is known to be very fast on the straightaway.
Yeah, that's sort of kind of backwards what you would think, right?
Yeah,
With the Mercedes
absolutely.
with a big 6.2 liter engine, it shakes the ground as it goes by. But I guess the way that everything works out, the NSX is actually sort of the rocket ship in a straight line, and the Mercedes is better elsewhere. But that's sort of what the draw to sports car racing is, that every car has its advantages and disadvantages, and it makes it fun to watch, right? And you see this even at the TC level, at the GT4 level as well, where certain cars they don't have the legs for the long straightaways here at Road America, but give them slippery conditions like the rain we saw yesterday, or give them a lot of draft, maybe a bump draft, and they can run up there and pass.
Yeah, and that's, with having so many different types of cars, which makes it fun, also makes it difficult for the series to be able to balance their performance, or the BOP, the balance of performance, is always challenging. So they'll try to balance out the cars through different weight and restrictors and things like that in order to make the cars as even as they can. But they're not even in every place. The cars are going to make their time in different ways. Like you say, some are faster on the straightaway, some are better in the twisty areas, which makes for great racing because you have some cars that may pass on the straightaway, and then once they get into the turns, you're going to have the other car be right back on top of them and go inside them into the next turn.
And we were talking earlier about the different classes of cars out there. The GT2s have a lot, I guess their straight line speed ends up being a lot more than the GT3 cars, but they're slower overall over the course of the lap, which makes a really interesting dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're looking at the GT2 cars here right now. You get Jason Bell that was up front there, and it looks like we're looking at David Askew and GT3 car. So he's still out there making his laps. But we've in the GT2 cars, you're actually that Porsche that went by and Jason Bell, 700 horsepower, completely unrestricted, running all out. And it has the aero of a GT4 car, meaning it's a limited aero to support it. So it can't go through this turn like David just did through there, because it just doesn't have enough aero to push the car to the ground, so not as much grip, if you will. Here we see George going, moving his way around. Let's see what turn we got there. It looks like coming on the straightaway.
Yep, that's turn 14 there. And we can actually take a look at the P1TS software that will give us a great perspective of the different lap times that we're seeing here. And we're talking about the GT3 cars. How about sorry about that. Thanks for poking me on the shoulder there. We've got the Shelby Blackstock, the 93, a 209.027. Is the last lap that he ran on through, but take a look down at the GT2 cars. They're the green, and 213, 214. So 3 to 4 seconds slower, but on the straightaway is a very different picture.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see how they're making so much, so much of their time. The GT3 cars are just staying in the throttle and able to carry that speed through all of the turns, while the GT2 cars are just blisteringly fast on the straightaways.
And I think in behind there is one of those Ferrari GT3s. That's the number 31. That is also a GT2 spec car, GT Sports Club car, I should say. And that's a different classification as well. So there's a bunch of different classes in here, but they're all sharing the racetrack, which is a common theme across sports car racing, whether you're looking at SRO America or any other international or national series. Even in the series that you run, there's TCR, TC, and TCA. Tell me a little bit about your experiences in the TCR car. I know yesterday there was a bit of a holdup on a restart.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, sometimes when you actually, especially towards the end of the race, if you get a yellow flag, the safety car is going to come out and pick up the leader of the race. In our case, it was a TCR car, of course. But unfortunately, mixed in within our group of TCR cars are some TCA cars. And by way of horsepower, a TCR car is roughly double what a TCA car has. But we also have this nice rule that on a restart, in order to make sure that the leader gets the advantage, as they should, because they've earned it by being the leader, you cannot pass before going past the start-finish line. And unfortunately, that meant that I had a couple TCA cars going about half the speed I would have wanted to go in front of me as we tried to regain, go by. That's part of racing. One of those things that the series actually has a rule for allowing people to pass or to move around TCR specifically, but it was too close to the end of the race for them to be able to take a whole nother lap to do so. So I got held up a little bit, but in the end, 5th place finish, so wasn't complaining. And then today, was able to pull out a 3rd with all the argy-barginess
We're wondering
that was
about
going
that
on there.
imbalance that they were dealing with earlier in the weekend and certainly in qualifying this morning. And speaking with the team, it was a case of after that first qualifying session, they had a pretty good idea of what it would take to fix that problem, but because of the rules, they could not really enact those changes in between the sessions. They couldn't do the kind of changes per the rules that they would have liked to have done. So they went back to the setup pad after the qualifying and really tweaked on that car. And based on what Shelby has been saying to the team over the radio to this point, he seems quite happy, and it looks like the pace on track would bear that out. One other interesting note, while talking to Trent Hidman, was where these cars make their speed really does vary over the course of a long lap here at Road America. He said he feels like it's Sector 2 where the Acura really struggles relative to the others. It's very good in Sectors 1 and 3. He thinks the Mercedes is strongest in Sector 2, while the Ferrari is pretty balanced across the entire lap. So really interesting to see that play out. Oftentimes the ultimate speed is pretty similar across the board, but the way that the cars go about achieving that speed can vary greatly.
That sort of goes back to what we were just talking about how to achieve speed in a different way. So thanks to Ryan for that. So we're approaching the 25-30 minute mark here, and we're still a little ways off from pit stops, but this was a discussion at Sonoma. There were some violations on pit lane on one day and some speeding penalties on another that weren't really speeding penalties. What's our pit delta? How long do you have to spend on pit lane? Because I know that's a standardized time.
Yeah, one of the things is when you're making a pit stop, it varies by track. In this case, they have a minimum time from the time they enter pit lane till the time they exit of 86 seconds. By doing that, they also, if you were to go down pit lane, that entire pit lane from pit in to pit out at 50 kilometers an hour, which is the speed limit, it would take you 46 seconds. So essentially you have 40 seconds to slow down, get in your pit box, get the driver out, fill the car full of fuel, change all 4 tires, drop the car, and then, at the end of that 40 seconds, be moving back out, such that you could leave pit lane right at 86 seconds. You are allowed what they call a joker, 1 per weekend, and that is just shy of a second, so under a second of delta. So if you get off by just a little bit, one time, you won't get a penalty. But if you're at all if you come in at 85 seconds, or you get out of the pit lane in 85 seconds, that means that you're going to get a penalty and you're going to have to come back down through.
So I have to pay attention to that a little bit later in the race when pit stops start to become an issue. But right now, what I'm seeing is that the 93 and 33 are the two cars that everyone's going to have to beat today. They've got about 11 seconds on the next car. That's Fuentes in another Ferrari. That's a long ways back here at Road America, but again, it's a big track. And one thing you don't have to worry about so much here that you would at Sonoma is you don't have to worry about going a lap down here under the pit lane circumstances.
Yeah, under normal circumstances, because the track is so long that you likely or very unlikely to be able to go down a lap. That's one of the things, actually, if you look at David Askew, in the black DXDT car, even though he was in that accident, he's still on the lead lap. And if he can stay on the lead lap, and there is a full course caution later on, he'll be able to catch back up, and Ryan Dial could actually, get in that car and give a run for it. George, on the other hand, I think they're 2 or 3 laps down, so unfortunately it's going to be unlikely they'll be able to get back onto the lead lap. But nonetheless, we can watch how that unfolds. Talking a little bit about the race within a race type of thing that we have here is we actually have many different races going on here. But you have Fuentes Fuentes there. That's actually the other car that's in the class with George and David Askew. So even though we've had all this mess, George is still in 3rd place within his class. Obviously, normally George and team and David are trying to go for the overall win, not just within class, but given that championships are by class, maintaining or trying to get as many points within that class are very important.
And you can see the class that we're talking about right now is the one that's highlighted in red on the bottom right of your screen. That's the GT3 Pro-Am class. The GT3 Silver class cars are the 2 leaders overall right now in the gold designation. And then there's GT3 Am, which is the car with the number 20. It's the Porsche Pordad. And then we got the GT Sports Club cars, which are the green. And there's one purple classified car that's the GT Sports Club Iron category.
Iron, yes, that's I believe that indicates the age of the driver. They have a class for those that are I believe Iron is over 60, if I'm not mistaken. Stu Frederick is, I believe, the only driver that we have in a GT2 car out there in the Iron class. He's on the screen there in the 57 there, I think, with Jason Bell there just in front of him. There are 2 GMG team cars. And they spend a lot of time racing each other, in GT2, both here and, within SRO, as well as on occasion at the Thermal Club in California.
So obviously we saw that incident in the first corner. That was the first 20, 30 seconds of the race between the DXDT Racing cars. Tell me a little bit about when something doesn't quite go your way, how that affects your mindset through the rest of the race. Is that something that you have to brush off very quickly, or does it bother you? I mean, obviously, I think earlier today we saw you have a little bit of contact.
Yeah.
Nothing that you did wrong, just someone spun in front of you, couldn't miss them. How does that affect you for the rest of the race?
So you have to be able to be like Teflon out on the track. You have to be able to put things behind you because you have to concentrate on what's in front of you, not what's behind you. In that case earlier today, my teammate, Olivia Askew, actually David's daughter, was in front of me going into turn 5. Looked like she got a little crossed up and ended up sideways in front of me at a point where I'm at the limit trying to make the turn. I was able to get to the brakes a little bit, still shunted her left rear tire or left rear suspension, and then boogied around her. Unfortunately broke her suspension in the process, but kind of hard to do when you're in an all-out downhill braking maneuver, turning in, and I see the broadside of her car, unfortunately. So you have to put everything behind you, go on and race thereafter. In my case, obviously my aero was a little bit messed up, but it worked out. Olivia, came over and I apologized to her, and she was like, "I apologize to you. I was blocking your road." But between us, we put it behind us, and her car will be fixed up, and mine will be tomorrow. And we'll go out and do it again.
That's awesome. And obviously, DXDT Racing and CrowdStrike working very hard to keep these cars running and in tip-top shape. And so far, Kevin Boehm, we'll have in here tomorrow, has won 2 races so far this weekend. So his weekend's going great.
His weekend's going great. That's he got his first pole yesterday, and then followed it up with the win. Repeat being on pole today and in bringing it flag to flag. So Kevin's been doing great. We expected this from Kevin. He's got a great pedigree. He's a 5-time national champion in the SCCA. Works exceptionally hard, both he and his wife Sharon. Really doing all the things that you need. Looks like Stu got a little wide there in what looked like to be 8 there, going into the carousel.
That's easy to do. I mean,
yeah.
They give you a lot of pavement, and you want to use all of it, but sometimes you use a little bit too much, and it ends up costing you a little bit of time. We saw a lot of over-under maneuvers in the GT4 races this weekend as well. It seems like it's so easy to, with the exit rumble strips here are so wide that you sort of treat it like extra pavement, and then it turns into grass and gravel very quickly.
Yeah, it definitely does. And you also have, one of the things is it's progressive. You have the normal pavement, which is nice and smooth. Then you have rumbles just on the outside, and it gets progressively more bumpy. Like right here, you'll see the Ferrari only goes out so far onto that curbing. Go about a little bit further, it all of a sudden gets a little bit more violent and shakes you all around, and you basically lose some teeth in the process.
Yeah, this is a really interesting battle, watching Jason Bell here with the Ferrari tucked in behind him, to see the differences between these two cars and how close they end up being. But the Ferrari's going to dive under on the brakes into turn number 8 and slip on through for an overall position pass there. That would be for, I think, 6th spot.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you see. That was actually a very sportsman thing to do of Jason. He actually stayed wide to allow that car to come through. A GT3 car is going to have the aero in these areas to be able to go faster. You can see the wing on this particular, on the Ferrari, compared to the wing that's on this Porsche. Just nowhere near the amount of aero downforce.
So we're about 30 minutes into this race here with a 1.7 second lead for Shelby Blackstock and the Acura NSX GT3 for Racers Edge Motorsports, the Mercedes in behind them, and then a long ways back to the 3rd place car, but that's how these things go. This team, this Racers Edge Motorsports team, has been on it this season with Shelby and Trent Hinman. That is an amazing combination of racing driver.
Yeah, both drivers are, top-notch drivers. Lots of experience, both within GT3 as well as other types of cars. I know Shelby actually drives in TCR in another series, so they both, and Trent as well. They're both seasoned professionals that truly know what they're doing on their game, and the team is operating at a high level. I really would have loved to see the the 2 DXDT cars out there mixing it with them. Even though they're not in the same class, it's always bragging rights to be able to come home with an overall win.
So with only a little ways left until our pit window opens, we can swap in for some of the pro drivers and see how that'll affect the outcome of the race. That's still a big deal here. We're going to throw totally different drivers in here and do a driver swap, and we talked about this a little bit at Sonoma, but you don't get a whole car to yourself here in this series. You're going to have to turn it over to a teammate, and in this case, it'll be the pro driver that gets the car second. So you're putting your faster driver in later in the race, which is going to totally mix up how things are going to go.
It absolutely is. And really what the thing is many of the pros are pretty close to each other. They're within a tenth at the most a lot of times on lap times, if in similar equipment. So where the big difference is a lot of times here with the amateurs that are in the cars right now. But you can also, if you, depending on how you do your pit stop, if you pit really early, getting your amateur out of the car, get the pro in as quickly as you can make up time, because the longer your pro is in over any other team, the more lap time you're going to be able to crawl back and potentially, leapfrog, if you will, some of the other teams.
And obviously, speed is very important. That's for CrowdStrike, that's very important for them. Obviously, effective cybersecurity means you see and stop threats like hackers as fast as possible. That's what CrowdStrike does, and that's why every second counts. And every second is counted so far in this race. We're a lot of seconds in, 33 minutes now, as we continue here this afternoon. And it is a beautiful day. We fought rainy conditions yesterday. So for those that, I'm sure there's a lot of people at home that don't like driving in the rain or don't like driving in the snow. What's it like on a racetrack at 120 miles an hour?
Yeah, it's a bit different, that's for sure, because you have all the spray off of the race cars around you, and in many cases your windshield's fogging up because we don't exactly have the best blowers or defrosters in these cars. No defrosters or foggers, just basically a fan in there blowing on it. So you have to try to do everything you can as smooth as possible, not any abrupt adjustments, very similar to how you drive in the snow. But in this case, you're actually also trying to go as fast as you possibly can. So braking zones, you have to elongate and be smooth on the brakes. and make sure you give yourself a little bit of room to be able to make long arcing corners. Yeah, we were still hitting, north of 135 miles an hour on the straightaways yesterday when, like I said, we get up to 148 normally. So we did have to, some of the straights here still puddle, so you can't go completely flat out, and you're not getting as good a drive off the corner, so you're not getting to the same terminal velocity towards the end. Not to mention you're letting off a little bit early in order to move your brake zones back.
And the weather today is obviously a lot better than it was. Although I will say that the track temperature has continued to rise in this afternoon with the increasing temperature. 39.7 degrees Celsius, which is over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, that's not the hottest that we've ever seen it, but that is certainly getting up there in terms of track temperature. So, is there a certain point when warm track is no longer a good thing and it starts to hurt the tires?
Yeah. So right now the track temp isn't too bad. 100 is reasonable. But you get up into the 125 to 130 range, then you're really, that also probably means your ambient temperature is really high. Right now we're in pretty good temperatures by ambient temperatures in the mid 70s with the track at about 100. The cars, especially the turbo cars, are getting that cooler, denser air into their intakes and able to make more power. And then the tires, I think, are well within a good operating range. So the track is a little warm, but not crazy warm. And the other thing is, if you look at the color of the surface here at Road America, it's not really black. This surface itself definitely has that gray sheen to it, so it doesn't hold the sun heat as much as you would have on a darker color track.
This place is a really beautiful facility, and I got the opportunity to kind of buzz around it a couple days ago and check out the interior. They call it, again, the National Park of Speed. There's a lot of lore around this track, and one of them is a story called Brian Redman's cat. And for those that aren't aware, this is a story that I learned about earlier this year. And CJ's, you're shaking your head going, you don't know what I'm
I don't know what you're talking about.
So this is so the corner workers here have sort of I stopped short of calling it like a religious thing, but there was a cat at one point that was all raggedy, like a wild cat or feral cat that would come up and beg the corner workers for food, and they would feed it, and it would come hang out with them, and it did that for years and years and years. And legend has it that the cat passed away. And there's a memorial for it on the outside of the carousel over there in turns 9 and 10. And supposedly every time that the SCCA comes here, the corner workers go over there and light up candles and do all sorts of crazy stuff. So there's your Brian Redman's cat. Where Brian Redman got involved with that, he was a British racing driver. Not sure where that came into it, but there's your story for you.
Excellent. I wasn't aware of that, and I have a lot of good friends that are corner marshals, and many of them have worked here, especially during the SCCA runoffs. I hadn't heard that one yet. I guess that means that I'm not spending enough time with my friends that are corner marshals at Road America. So some of my friends that work in that space, I'm sure right now they're listening and wondering why I didn't know that. So that's a pretty interesting story. There are a lot of things that Road America's got a lot of history.
Well, and you talk about the history, and I put this in a very similar category to a track like Watkins Glen, where it's built on, originally raced on country roads here back in 1952. And they raced there for a couple years until there was an accident in Watkins Glen, which prompted the banning of public street racing. And so in 1955, they created this racetrack as sort of a haven for motorsports fans. And to this day, it still is one of the largest spectator attractions in this part of Wisconsin. And let me tell you, this place is so pretty. And I back at home, I always see the Sargento Bridge, and I thought that was sort of like the Sargento sponsor. There's a Sargento factory right down the road.
Right down the street.
It's right down the street.
Exactly.
And I love that about this. Here's a big battle here. Was there a touch? Oh, yes.
Well, I think Stu was inside, and I think Jason just came and made it around him. There might have been a touch, but I think that was a clean pass. A little bit of, I say that's some racing going on there.
Sure. And it's always good to see side by side. And again, this place is narrow. We talked about why it's narrow earlier, because the standard road grader at the time, only 16 feet wide, made 2 passes, said we're good, and called it a day. And I think it's widened out in a few places with some runoff and adjustments here and there, but it's still very narrow. And you don't really think about it. It doesn't look that narrow. You get out there and you're, their wall is right there. That's not very wide.
Yeah, when we did the track walk, and I've been here for years, like I said, the runoffs back 2009 forward, and we went out and did a track walk, and we realized how narrow it really was, and wondered, when we were trying to make it through traffic with the TCA cars, sometimes can't make it by them, and if there's 3 TCA cars side by side, there's not enough room for a TCR car as well. So we then realized that it is a pretty narrow circuit, especially with the speeds that you're traveling at through most of the course. Very high overall average speed here at Road America.
Yeah, average speed and top speed. We're seeing probably 165, 170 or better for the GT3 cars. The GT2 cars nearly 180 down into turn 1. So the speeds here are fast, and the issue is that you have to get slowed down. A lot of these corners have almost no camber to them. Yeah. So you get to it, turn 1 especially, very, very flat. You get to it, you're going, a $170, and you got to slow down to get to second or third gear.
Yeah, the nice thing with turn 1 is that given the runoff that's there, and you can actually use a good bit of it. I'm only going down in the 4th gear, and you're actually carrying, at apex, you should be in TCR, you're 80, 85 miles an hour still at the apex of the turn. So you're still able to carry some speed. But once again, TCR car has a good bit of aero, likely more aero than a GT2 car that's going down through there, and they're going down there, north of 170. And I noticed, I was talking to Jason Bell real briefly, I said from pit lane, from where we're actually pit, I can actually see him turn his brake lights on. In most other cars you couldn't. It was all the GT2 cars that were braking earlier because they're going so much faster, don't have the aero, and therefore can't brake as late.
So SRO America has brought this amazing series to Road America. A couple weeks after Sonoma, we got the season finale to Indianapolis in a couple of weeks. I think it's more like a month, but it's coming up here. But CrowdStrike and SRO work together a lot, and so does AWS. And we're going to show you exactly what CrowdStrike does to help protect SRO.
When we first looked at the opportunity of working with CrowdStrike as a technical partner and as our security partner, we knew it would help us in this world that we live in today, but we didn't realize how much it would help us to be secure in a post-COVID environment, or as we have to exist today, as we all say, it's a new normal that we have to operate on. When we were very impressed with CrowdStrike, with the ability to quickly respond in seconds to threats, that's been a great aspect of our partnership.
Back live at Road America, the National Park of Speed for GT World Challenge America, race number 1 of the weekend. We're about halfway through our 90-minute race here this afternoon, and I'm joined by CJ Moses as we continue to watch the battles that have happened on track. But now we're sort of in a waiting pattern here, waiting for a pit stop sequence to change out drivers and run to the end.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see here actually the GT Sports Club cars hitting their 40-minute mark and coming across. So we'll actually have those 4 cars go ahead and take their checker flags and exit the track. And then soon thereafter, at the 45-minute mark, we're actually we'll go ahead and start to see the pit window open. There's a 10-minute pit window from the 45th minute to the 55th minute, and that'll allow them to go ahead and come in. I think you'll find, especially for many of these cars, they're going to be looking, the Pro-Am cars are going to be looking to get their other Pro or their Pro in the car as soon as they can. So as soon as that pit window opens up, they'll dive in. They'll go ahead, come on down pit lane, change all 4 tires, fill the car with fuel, change out the drivers, and get back underway, and do so in a total time of about 86 seconds. No faster, or at least no faster than a second faster than that if they're using their Joker.
So let's recap the first 45 minutes or so, because for those that missed the beginning, all the action happened right at the drop of the green flag, and unfortunately for CrowdStrike and AWS, the DXDT racing cars kind of tangled there on the opening lap. Nothing that either of them did wrong, just a narrow track and a lot of cars in a small space, but it was Askew and Kurtz just got together and spun Kurtz off into the gravel. They had to recover that car, so that was a full course caution. We went back green, and since then the field's just basically stretched out in the order they were in, save for a few position swaps in the GT Sports Club category towards the end of the race. But that's where we are now, about 44 minutes into it with 46 and a half left, and Shelby Blackstock continues to lead, but his lead is expanded now to nearly 3 seconds over Donji in the 33.
Yeah, it's so far been, you know, the first few minutes of the race were very exciting. Once the DXDT cars got straightened out and back on track, then it looks like we've had a green run since then, and cars are spreading out a good bit.
This is a battle for third on overall. That is Fuentes in the #1 Ferrari, and right behind him the 20 of Portad in the Porsche. And closing in the braking zone here. We saw these cars battle a lot at Sonoma as well, and that's sort of the nature of this series, is you end up around the same people a lot. So you better get used to racing them.
Yeah, especially cars that run at similar speed or have different ways to make that speed end up together for various reasons. In this case, there's a few cars on track that end up together. I think we already saw that our DXDT Mercedes both get together a little bit. I mean, they were pretty close together at Sonoma, and unfortunately way too close here at Road America in the first race. I'm sure we'll get that worked out and make another run at it tomorrow.
Well, I tell you, someone who's making a run at it's Portad right now, closing in the kink, and this is all about carrying speed. But the wash of the car in front, he's going to whoop. He actually did a nice job of backing out early. So tell me a little bit about that. When you're following another car, and cars that are this fast with this much downforce, they create a lot of wake, just like a boat.
Yeah, just like you say, just like a boat. If you were following right behind a boat that was going through there in the water, you'd have a lot of turbulent air, and that turbulent air decreases the amount of downforce on the second car going through, and therefore the car doesn't have as much grip, and there unfortunately it has the without having that grip, it also will potentially lose control. He did a good job to actually back off just a little bit. You can see here the pit window is open, and our drivers are coming in to start their pit stops.
All right, and we have that standard time that everyone has to come down and pit. So there's a minimum time, and the goal is to be as close to that minimum time without going under it by more than a second, because that's your one oopsie moment for the weekend, and if you're going to take advantage of it, you can't do it tomorrow. So minimum time everyone's going to shoot for. You see those are the GT Sports Club cars that have finished their race, and now Fuentes and Portad come on down, and the race transitions from the pavement to the pit lane.
Absolutely, and each of these cars actually have built-in pit speed limiters that they have installed in the car. So as long as they get to the line and hit that before they get in there, you'll see they'll go just under 50 kilometers an hour all the way down into their pit stalls.
And now the pit crews go to work here, and 4 tires, fuel, driver change, a lot of things to unplug and plug in and belt down, and it's a process. It's fascinating.
It is a process, and actually these drivers as well as the crews practice this. What you want to have on a good pit stop is everything to be done and you to be waiting for your team to tell you it's time to go, meaning that you've actually done it in less time than you had. That way you can time it exactly right, pull out, and get out of pit lane without going too fast, but also not wasting any time, because every second counts, as we talk about.
And that's exactly what Portad's did. Obviously a driver swap now to the team car. But here is Fuentes relinquishing the car to his teammate, which will be Rodrigo Baptista in the Squadra Corsa team. Portad will give the car over to Max Root, and they are gone and away for the Wright Motorsports crew. So was that just a better executed pit stop, or what?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it looks like. I mean, see how much difference they came in nose to tail, and now Root's car is long gone, and they're just now leaving pit lane, so that's probably a good 10-second delta now.
And there is Shelby Blackstock in the Racer's Edge Motorsports Acura NSX. He'll be turning over the car to Trent Hinman, and then after that we'll also have Donji coming in the leading 33 Mercedes. They'll come on down and they'll jump in the car as well. That will be a transition over to, let's see, it'll be Russell Ward for the Windward Racing team. Here on pit lane, I think that's the DXDT Racing 63. Askew's jumping out. Ryan Dial will be jumping in that car and taking it to the finish.
Yep, absolutely. I'm sure Ryan's been looking forward to this car. Obviously right now might have a little bit of aero compromise on the front end, but he's been very pleased with the new platform. you know, he's the big proponent of actually getting the new car, so make sure that they were on equal footing with their with the CrowdStrike Racing team.
French Pirelli P0 is going on the left side of the car. Now the crew coming around to the right. This is a well-coordinated, well-orchestrated ballet for this pit crew. No question about that. Left rear on. A little trouble getting the air hose release. Now the car is dropped, but an apparent problem towards the front of the car. Now they release Trent. Because they held him, I don't think it cost them too much, but boy, that was chaos there at the end of that stop.
So now it looks like it'll be Trent Hinman pulling that car onto the racetrack, and also the pit out here funnels you down, and this is something that we see a lot on restarts, especially when they're double file like in NASCAR. On the restarts, the cars will fan out because the track is wider, and then it immediately funnels back down, and that's a point of a lot of contacting issues.
Well, and I think that's part of what we saw earlier with David and George, is that the track was getting narrower, therefore the car to George's right was moving in a little bit. George was under braking and got a little bit loose, and him getting loose at the same time that David had, you know, jammed it down the outside. There was enough room for the three cars side by side, but not under hard braking.
Here comes the race leader. The 33 car will drop into the pit lane. 50 kilometers an hour. Hit that button. Make sure you don't speed. That was an issue several times in the Sonoma race weekend, not necessarily just in GT World Challenge America, but also in some of the other series there that weekend. So that'll be another driver jumping in here shortly, and we're going to see how things cycle out. It was only a 2-second gap between Blackstock and the trailing 33 car. So when they switch with a little bit of a hiccup on the Acura's stop, we could see a position change for the overall race leader.
Yeah, absolutely. That's you know, they seemed like they were going a little bit for the overcut in this case to try to make a faster lap out on the track such that they can get their pit stop done and be back out onto the track before Trent makes his way around.
So 33 car into the box here and doing a driver change.
Oh.
And again, this will be a driver swap from Donji to Ward for the Windward Racing Mercedes. And with 40 minutes left to go, they waited a couple more laps, and those are precious laps that some of the other drivers that came in earlier could take advantage of having their pro in the car. Baptista and Root being, well, I guess the Root team is only an AM class car, but I believe for Baptista it could be different.
Yeah, absolutely. For Baptista here, Windward, they're actually a silver class car, so it's going to be an interesting thing to see if you know, how their pit stop goes. You can see Shelby's coming down the front straightaway, so yep, that's.
Nicely done, I guess.
Yeah.
We've worked out for them as they rocket on by towards turn 1 at about 175 miles an hour. And out rolls the Windward Racing 33. And here comes Colin Brown in the CrowdStrike AWS Mercedes AMG GT3. Again, Colin a couple laps down after that car got looped around in the opening lap, but making time with it. I'm going to be curious to watch his lap times and see how fast he's going in this car.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things you can actually see still in the overall that Colin, even though he's been out there for a little while, is still, you know, overall behind the GT Sports Club cars because they were a couple laps down, and before too long, Colin will make those laps up and go ahead of the Sports Club cars because they're already, you know, finished their race.
Well, look right there, circled the 208.311 was his first lap out, which was the best lap that anybody has done in a GT3 car in this race. So that just goes to show you that I don't think the car has that significant of damage, or at least that, or Colin Brown's overcoming it. So he's able to do that. Of course, he's going to have some work left on his hands.
Yeah, in qualifying, he ran a 6 flat, so a 206.0. So not expecting normally to see that right away, obviously, you know, in a car that's out on the track, but I'd expect the car without damage, he'd still be down in the 206s, and it's still possible that he might.
Yeah, still the fast car on the racetrack that time through. We'll keep an eye on that as the race goes on, but still third in class behind Dial and Baptista. But again, they were leading this category by 1 point coming into the day, so if they can even get past the team car, that would at least help them out a little bit in terms of the points picture.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if they couldn't get completely past the team car, if the team car could go up there and get in front of Baptista to take those points away from Baptista, that would actually even help them just as much.
Trent Hinman is getting after it right now. He went way wide in turn 13. Bill Mitchell bend over there. That's where there used to be a bridge, a crossover in that corner. They removed it because it was sort of in a bad spot. The abutments were kind of right on the exit of a corner. So they took that down and put a tunnel under that part of the racetrack, and which is a much safer and better way to get in and out.
And we appreciate them for that.
Yeah, less things to hit. But you see Trent is going after it. He's just trying to run away while he can. It's a 16-second gap back to Ward right now, though, so he's not running from a whole lot.
Yeah, and he just ran the fastest lap of the race now. He's actually taken that away from Colin, so 2:08.11, which is a very good race pace. It'll be interesting to see here between Ryan Dial and Colin Brown. The lap times that they turned, given both cars had a little bit of damage to them, but I think Colin will be driving not mad, but definitely angry, not angry at anyone, just trying to make up the
just angry at the situation.
At the situation, yes.
Yep.
Two laps down from Dial, and then 3 from the overall leader. Not going to make that back without others having issues, but doesn't mean that you give up. You go out there and drive as fast as you possibly can with hopes that something will happen that you can crawl that back.
All right, so as we continue to race, we've got 35 minutes left in this race. There is the 33 Windward Racing car. That's Ward in the 33 now, a little ways back from Trent Hinman. Both silver class cars up at the front of the field. We talked about the mental part of racing earlier when things don't go your way, but let's talk about the athleticism a little bit, because at Sonoma, that's a pretty tight, twisty racetrack. Not a lot of top speed here, though. You're pulling some sustained G's through a lot of these corners.
Yeah, absolutely. At Sonoma, I wear my Apple Watch, I guess they call it. I guess they don't call it an iWatch. Call everything else eye stuff. But nonetheless, I wear that while I race, and it actually does all the heart rates and the health monitor, all that kind of fun stuff. And at Sonoma, in 3 test sessions, 3 45-minute test sessions, I burned over 2,000 calories according to that, and I don't doubt it because I got out of the car, completely sweated out. Yeah, you have to be in really good shape, especially as it's hot out there. Come out of a car after, in their case, 45 miles an hour or 45 minutes of going 180 or 165 miles an hour, give or take. Here on the straightaways, at least you have a chance to let your hands, clear up a little bit, shake them out. Where at Sonoma, you don't even have that chance. But here, you're going a lot faster, almost everywhere, than you would at Sonoma. Which definitely you have to keep your wits about you, because one momentary lapse of paying attention or concentration, and you can very easily end up not only in the kitty litter but in the tire walls.
You saw the AWS banners there on the front straightaway, and AWS is a very integral player in SRO America. A lot of their stuff runs on the AWS cloud. Tell me a little bit about the integration there and how AWS and SRO sort of work together in that regard, and what your role is specifically.
So obviously my day-to-day role with AWS is, essentially I'm second in charge of security for the Amazon Web Services, essentially keeping the cloud secure, if you will. But my role working with SRO is essentially as an ambassador within the motorsports arena, working with SRO in order to bring the AWS technology to motorsports and allow the SRO to use the technology that AWS has to enhance the viewership, or how it's
for Ryan Gates
here.
back in Victory Lane here,
Yes, sir.
and a beautiful setting for it at Road America. How did you snag the lead, and then how did you hold on?
Well, that Porsche 911 GT2 RS has so much power on the straights. I kind of set it up prior to with a quick exit on, I think, turn 3. Just pinned it, followed the Ferrari, and then faked to the right, bombed to the left, and that was it. Thankfully, he raced clean, too.
Yeah, nice race indeed.
Thank you.
Now, usually I'm the one asking questions, but I understand you've got a question to ask as well.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. Christina, I've got a question for you. You don't need a mask. Krista, you are the love of my life, and I am wondering if you will please take my name and marry. Will you marry me?
Special moment here in Victory Lane at Road America, guys.
that was cool. That's pretty neat. I don't think I've seen that before. You can add that to the list of things that I've seen.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that one before. Ryan Gates, a former teammate of mine, we used to race together. He did time attacks with AMS Performance, or for AMS Performance in a Mitsubishi Evo, while myself and my other teammate Marty Gran ran in SCCA.
Well, congratulations to them, but unfortunately for the one car, for the Pro-Am #1, Fuentes and Baptista, a drive-through penalty for a pit lane infringement, which you might know about this because it looks like you got an idea.
Yeah, this is actually, they're obviously you have to come down pit lane, going to be going very slow. This may help to get Ryan DL back closer in the game. Obviously it's going to put them closer together. I don't know if they make up enough time there, but if nothing else, it's getting them back closer together. I'm sure word's out to Ryan DL by now, and he's probably looking at, okay, how much time do I have to make up here?
This was the class leader for the Pro-Am category, so that was big news there. We'll see how things shake out.
Yeah, that's I don't know what the delta was here, where we can look at P1TS and see kind of what we've got and see what the delta turns out to be between the first and second place cars within the Pro-Am class.
Keep an eye on
here, we'll try to bring that to you once you have to let things cycle out a little bit once they are back out on track here.
There, now we got it. So now you can see the one car down in turn number 5 right now. The 63 is still in turn number 3. So still a little ways to go, but it did significantly shorten that distance that he had to work.
It made it something that is possible. We'll see what lap speeds we've got going here, but and definitely if there's any type of full course caution, it definitely puts them closer to it. And Ryan DL he's a master. He if there's any way that it can be done, he'll be putting lap times down like you've never thought before.
We were talking briefly about the AWS tech in motorsports. How about we show you a little bit here? We'll be right back here.
Hello, I'm CJ Moses, the Deputy Chief Information Security Officer for Amazon Web Services. Coming on as title sponsor with the SRO has allowed us to create new innovation, to use our technologies in ways they've never been used before. The cloud is very capable. All of these 195 services that we offer provide vast different capabilities, but customers come up with even better ways to use it than we ever thought of. In the case of the SRO, we're going to be bringing better experiences through to the TV itself. Second screen experiences where we're going to be doing a lot of predictive analytics and things like that. These are the types of things that we want to see our customers from AWS actually do, and by partnering with the SRO, we're introducing it to a whole new venue and to sports cars. We're bringing a lot of excitement to it as well, and when you have excited fans that are getting a better experience and we're able to showcase the technology that AWS has doing that, I think it's a win-win for SRO, for us, and for the fans that are actually engaged in the watching of the event.
back live at Road America, the National Park of Speed, with 27 minutes remaining in the first race of the weekend for GT World Challenge America. And it's a 90-minute event. We've done our driver swaps, and we're getting down to the last half hour or so here, CJ. We've seen some drama with the leader in the Pro-Am category being penalized for a pit road infraction. They had to come on down, serve that, but they are still leading in that category. But out front, it's still Trent Hinman and the Shelby Blackstock combination by 18 seconds over Ward in the 33 Windward machine.
Yeah, absolutely, and it also looks like there in Pro-Am, the gap from first to second is still to Ryan DL looks about 23, 24 seconds, somewhere in that range. So there's still that's still a considerable amount of time to try to make up on track, unless there's some sort of yellow flag situation or otherwise.
Yeah, and I think the issue with hoping for a yellow flag is we've got 6 cars on track, so the chances that we're going to get that are not enormous. Where if you have a really big field, you got a lot of people making a mess out there. But with 6 drivers, you can usually trust them to stay green for most, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing for the race to stay green.
Absolutely.
However, strategically, not amazing.
Yeah. And that's the other part of that is the closer you get to the end of the race, the more likely that you'll actually end under the yellow flag. So you don't necessarily want that either. I know that there was recently a pretty big race in Indy that ended under the yellow flag, and although rooting for Sato and his win there, I hate to ever see a race end under yellow.
Yeah, and it's also not a great idea to turn them loose back with green with a lap left, and that makes people make great decisions, right?
Right.
So there's always a flip side of that as well. So yeah, but we've been watching. It's been a pretty entertaining race so far from a strategy standpoint, just because the gaps have been so large. So it kind of creates these interesting pit strategies, and we've seen a lot of distance gained on pit lane by Hinman and the Blackstock crew, but they've been awesome on pit road all year long. The only hiccup being that at Sonoma, I think the cameraman just got knocked over by the wind to how fast he was going. So that gives you an idea. There are some CrowdStrike banners there on the fence as they come down into Canada Corner. This might be the prettiest corner in American motorsport.
They definitely, I mean, Canada Corner is definitely very green, and I mean, when we're driving down in there, we're at 145 miles an hour or so, and then going to the brakes at the about 350 marker there.
So you have a lot of time to enjoy the scenery.
Oh yeah. Oh, he just he was off a little bit there, and he did a little flat tracking. So he's definitely still getting at it.
And I want to go back and take a look at the lap times that Colin Brown has been running, because he went out and for a moment and set the fastest lap. We'll go back and check it out now and see how he's doing. Brown's previous lap was a 209.573. And just ran a 209.060. Actually, that's his estimated time for this lap, excuse me. But Hinman continues to run mid-208s, and the only other driver that's there is really DL in the 63. So DL is running pretty quick laps right now, and is closing in on Baptista.
Yeah, he's definitely he's got it on kill. Ryan DL, otherwise known as Razzle Dazzle, he's definitely moving along there.
So less than 25 minutes to go now. You're getting towards the end of the race, and there's DL right there, the DXDT Racing team, and the Pro-Am category, the Mercedes. Brand new car, as you mentioned, sustained a little bit of front-end damage in that turn 1 collision with the team car.
Not liking it so much right now, unfortunately, guys. There was some kind of internal damage done based on that contact, at least according to my conversation a moment ago with David Askew. He said that it was evil. He does think it is a little bit better now, because in that incident, he flat-spotted a set of tires, and that was creating a pretty serious vibration. The good news is, with the change of tires at the pit stop, the vibration is gone, but the handling is not. Just talking to David, it seemed like he felt that there was a bit of a miscommunication there coming into turn 1, and that he felt like he held his line and George moved over. And I haven't had a chance to see it, so you can weigh in a little bit more on that. But clearly there's some disappointment, not just that it happened, but that it happened amongst teammates. The good news is it sounds like both cars will be repairable as far as repairs here on track looking ahead to tomorrow. So that's pretty much where the focus lies right now for DXDT Racing after problems really early on in this one.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the turn 1 incident again, and we don't have a replay to show you right this second, but obviously this is a situation that happens at Road America a lot. Turn 1 on an initial start or a restart, you get cars that are 2-3 wide, and I think the track funnels down, and I'm not sure it's anybody making any active maneuver anywhere. I think it's just the track gets narrow and there's too many cars.
Yeah, track gets narrow, you're under braking, so the car is going to move. It's not like, you're just driving down in there and you can keep your car exactly straight. You're under braking very hard and you're all together. and that's it's very likely. I mean, David was down in there. He had no room to go left. He was right on the edge, if not maybe maybe half his tire was still on the edge of that. And I don't think George knew that he was 100% there in that spot, because quite honestly, normally you don't go that wide through there with that many cars. You know, I think George's car did get a little bit out of hand, or out of you know, underneath him in that braking, and that's exactly what you kind of expect there. That's why normally you try not to do it 3 wide, but it's you know, I think they all handled it as well as they could. And you know, when you have exact copies of cars, you know, being driven, you know, to the highest level, you're, you know, put them all together within inches of each other, you're bound to have a little bit of contact. Unfortunate to have that contact between team cars, but it seems like today's the day for that to happen for us.
Well, they put on a show regardless of if they're leading or if they're spun in the gravel trap in turn 1, which is it's always fun. It's not the fun show that everyone wants to watch, but it is a show, and at least they got some camera time for CrowdStrike and AWS in one way or another. But Colin's been doing a great job driving the car back up through the field the best he can here, and continues to run fairly quick laps. Behind them is I believe that's the 33 car, the second car in the overall order. Driven by Ward right now, but last 20 minutes, and now is this the part? I mean, a 90-minute race, 45 minutes a driver roughly. How long is long enough where you start to feel fatigue, or is this still too short of a race to really feel that?
So a 45-minute stint for most race car drivers is still a sprint level, you know, stint. So I don't think you you know, start to get into fatigue just yet or anything like that. It's not so hot here, you know, comparative to, say, a Sonoma or, you know, some of the other tracks that we've been to this year. So I think, you know, Colin is probably the fittest of the drivers that we have amongst the DXDT team, and you know, his wife is a personal trainer, so she keeps him in good shape. But I think they'll be just fine. I think right now it's really the damage to the cars and stuff like that you're listening for every creak or moan, because when you have a little thing like that, at least they've had the chance to come in and put some duct tape on things. But we all know that you know, things go faster when they have duct tape on them.
Yeah, well, and they hold together better, probably,
absolutely.
when you would duct tape them together too, which when you go to remove that might be a bit of a problem. But less than 20 minutes to go now. There is Colin Brown right now as he climbs up the hill, the 33 of Ward behind him, and Brown's last lap of 209.260, which was faster than everybody in front of him, with the exception of the race leader and Dial in the 63 is second in class. So the third fastest car on the racetrack, although he's 6th overall as it stands.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's still 2 laps down, but you know, trying to make his way back through, it seems. Trying to do the impossible, which is what I would expect from Colin to try to do.
And I think as we watch this, and you know, Road America is a big place, and you have 6 cars like this that are spread out. It allows you to kind of get in your own groove, right? There's not a lot of distractions. You can focus on basically qualifying for 20 minutes. And is that preferable as a driver, or do you like having people targets to set for and to aim for?
So personally, I always like to have a rabbit. If there's something in front of me, I normally tend to drive faster. Some drivers do prefer to have the qualifying mode, where it's clear track, nobody in your way, and you can go as fast as you want. So if I had my choice, I'd have an in-class driver that's in front of me that I'm targeting to you know, keep up with, and even better to pass. And normally that means I'll drive even faster. Today during my race, even with damage on the car, right at the end we had one of the alphas that I wasn't aware was a couple laps down that came up and passed me, and as soon as he passed me, I all of a sudden went into attack mode and ran my fastest lap in the last lap of the race, which shouldn't happen. But you know, obviously my first lap of the race had a little bit of damage, so I was kind of babying it, and when time came to go into attack mode, I had to go and, you know, let it hang out there.
Well, funny thing is that CrowdStrike actually sponsors the fastest lap of the race award. They call it the every second counts fastest lap.
That's right, and I had a moment a second ago to talk with Indy Donche, who, as we've talked about, is making his Road America debut this weekend, and he says he's not super happy with the pace of the car. He feels like they're missing something, especially relative to the NSX, and we've seen that play out over the course of this race to this point. But he did say that he's absolutely loving this racetrack. And Greg, you're going to like this one. He says it reminds him of a mini Nürburgring. Doesn't that ring a bell? He's been loving his time running around this track. He says there's no margin for error whatsoever, and he really enjoys that aspect of it. And they're going to have to tweak on this race car a little bit to have the pace to run with the Racer's Edge guys looking ahead to tomorrow. But still, pretty good debut, I would say, in the Silver Cup for Windward Racing.
Comparing Road America to the Nürburgring, your thoughts? Or calling it, I guess, reminding him of the Nürburgring. Maybe not comparing it to it.
Yeah, that's, I think, you know, obviously Nürburgring's huge as far as that's concerned. So at least as way as the U.S. is concerned, I think we'll say this is a long track since it's 4. I think some of the straightaways, no doubt, and maybe a little bit of the carousel could be brought into that. But I guess maybe the part that is closest is not actually the track, but how green it is around, because Nürburgring is known as the green hell. And here it definitely is very green, and with all the rain that we've gotten yesterday, I think it'll stay that way.
I think another thing that sort of ties into it is the margin for error. Obviously, the Nürburgring, there's a lot of walls very close, and Road America's got some more open spaces, but it's still, we talked about how narrow it is, and that's been a key factor in a lot of the racing this weekend, is there's so little margin for error anywhere around this racetrack, especially in the high-speed sections like you can see Colin Brown going through it right now. Well over 150 miles an hour, tracking out. They just put in a new set of curbing out there, and there's still a whole lot of tire tracks to the left of that off the racetrack in the grass, so it is a fast corner.
And next time they show on TV or show on the broadcast here going through there, I want everybody to take a look at the actual track itself and just look down and look at all the rubber marks and which ways they're going, because many times those rubber marks are not going in the direction of travel. It's you'll go through there, you'll actually get left side tires off of that extra curbing or that extra concrete that they've placed there. You hook and you actually end up going dead right into the concrete barrier to your right.
It's really interesting. I drove through there yesterday for the first time, and looking at the wall, it's just a flat gray concrete all the way till you get to the kink, and then it's just a black wall for 100 yards from all the tire contacts and paint that's rubbed off there. It's sort of a harrowing reminder of how fast things are going through there and how quickly they stop, which is never a fun thing. But that's just, this is a classic American road course. This is also one of the few road courses, not only in America, but one of the few road courses in the world that retains its as-paved original configuration. So many tracks have seen reconfigs over the years. Think Watkins Glen, that track's been repaved and redone a billion times. Think Road Atlanta, same thing there. Sebring's seen a couple changes over the years. Laguna Seca. There's so many tracks that have not retained the original configuration. This is the exact same way. You can look up pictures from 1955 and you could recognize every single corner at this place.
And you know what's amazing about that is that many of these tracks have made those changes not only for competitive sake, but because FIA or other governing bodies required them for safety. In this case, they've actually been able to use the natural terrain that was created by the, the road scrapers or whatever it was that you talked about that were 16 foot wide, the road graders, and do so, and be able to do so 70-some years later and still have it be that same configuration. So I think that's great. Obviously, we have the kink that has some walls that are really close, but in other places you have some decent runoff. Here you see Colin going through the kink. Now look at the ground. And you see all those black marks and where they go, right, straight, dead right.
Yep.
So when you get it wrong, it goes real wrong through there.
Yeah, and you talk about the racetrack having a lot of runoff, so it hasn't changed configuration. It has seen quite a bit of improvement over the years in regards to curbing and runoff and wall placements and tire barriers and that sort of thing. Also in the infield, I noticed a bunch of new, it's my first time here, I've been told a lot of the buildings in the infield are brand new as well. So they've been doing a lot of improvements at this track. Obviously the tear down of the bridge, putting the tunnel in, that was back in 2006, but still modern day improvements.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the facilities here have definitely moved up to top notch. A lot of new buildings, a lot of the temporary buildings that used to be here are gone, and you have very nice new facilities, bathrooms, and those types of things. And obviously they have some NASCAR racing and stuff that goes on here that brings a lot of spectators. That's one of the things that I was very pleased to see. We haven't been able to have spectators, since COTA this year. And even driving around the racetrack while I was racing, I noticed there was a lot of people here. spectating. Obviously, they're maintaining social distance and they're separated outside the paddock so that we're not in contact with many of the spectators. But going around the track, you can actually see them all there, and especially on cool down, they're all cheering and waving and stuff. And we hadn't had that this year, and I love the energy that Road America has brought in the spectators and fans that are out here today.
I'm lucky I get to come back here in 2 weeks, so I get to enjoy it now, and I get to come back and enjoy it all over again in a little bit. But I've also been really happy with the fans that we've seen around the racetrack. You mentioned the paddock's been closed off, obviously, but a lot of mask wearing going on. That sort of fits. That's par for the course with SRO America so far, even at Sonoma. A lot of there's a zero tolerance for that around the racetrack, which is great because that's why we're still here, and that's why a lot of other places in sports have not been able to get going yet, is because they haven't been able to maintain that
Absolutely.
Policy very well. But SRO America's done an amazing job.
Absolutely, and SRO America's brought in Event Check, which actually runs on AWS, and essentially you have a nice little lanyard, device that you carry around and uses Bluetooth and other technology in order to be able to make sure we're maintaining social distancing between our bubbles and all that kind of fun stuff. And it also allows to make sure that people are doing their health checks every day before you are allowed entry into the space, trying to keep those that aren't feeling well away.
It's a very thorough system, and I think it's fascinating. It makes me feel safe. Even at Sonoma, which obviously flying into California wasn't a great situation, but and obviously you and everybody else has to be on the road a lot, so you have to be able to keep that risk down. And I think AWS and SRO have done an amazing job of creating this system, this event check software that has allowed us to still be here and enjoy racing. So I'm grateful for that. Grateful to be here on a beautiful day at Road America with 11 minutes remaining in our first race of the weekend. But this is going to set up an interesting race for tomorrow because we're going to get to do a little do-over with the DXDT Racing team after the issue at the race start tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there'll be a team meeting this afternoon or this evening. Go through that, see what happened, and make sure that that doesn't happen again. The other thing is obviously the crew will be put to the test. I'm sure they'll be swapping some parts out and getting the cars back to 100%. Changing setups to make sure that they're ready to go, because obviously with a little contact you end up with your alignment might not be the same as what they started out with, but the team will get it all together, and I'm sure between George and David they've had contact in the past, and it's gone both ways as to whose fault it was. It happens. That's racing, especially when the cars are so closely matched to begin with.
Ken Lynn, who is responsible for the P1TS software and development of that, he just sent me a message. We were talking off air earlier about the trap speeds in the middle of the kink, and he actually found those for us. The 04 Colin Brown, how about 134.2 miles an hour through the kink? That is unbelievable.
That's crazy hauling the mail. I think TCR were on average about 120-ish, right, 20, 21, right in that range. So if you're going faster than that, you're going fast. So he's doing another 13, 14 miles an hour.
Yeah, the 20 car did a 135.4 miles an hour through there. So that's also an unbelievable speed to be flying through there. And again, that's one of the fastest sustained corners on the racetrack.
Well, I know Colin came back from qualifying, and he asked the data guy to verify that he had actually gone flat through there. And not only had he gone through there flat once, he did it twice. So he actually went through there without lifting. Normally, you'll come up to that turn, you'll actually have a little lift to point the car, then back the throttle. In his case, he was able to get the car pointed and still carry speed for a couple laps before his tires were off, so that you actually would have to lift in order to get the car to go through there.
I think that's one thing that when people are new to motorsport, that there's not really a concept of how much braking and how much slowing you really have to do. I mean, there's a lot of you put your pedal to the floor and go, and that's what a lot of people would assume. You look at the kink and you go, oh yeah, maybe you can do that, and then you go up to it and you realize how tight that corner actually is and how fast you're going. You go, there's no way, that's not physically possible.
And it is a corner, and that's the thing is if you were to go through there, go flat and go straight and not get enough of the turn in, that's what happens. That's why you see so many cars hit the outside wall and then get collected into the inside wall. So what do we got going in here?
That's the 04. That's Colin Brown into the pit lane, and see, there's some dust coming up from the rear of the car. And
I wonder if they have a tire. It looks like left rear tire's down. It may have been cut, or they may have issues with that flapping piece. The other thing is quite honestly, we're right here at the end of the race. They may be at a point where there's no possibility for moving up. They're not going to have a full course caution where he's going to be able to leapfrog or get his laps back. So they may just be calling it a day, checking on the tires that are there. We'll see what they choose to do here.
Right. I mean, there's a race tomorrow, so there's really not a lot to gain right now. We did see at the bottom of the screen there for a moment the trap speeds. I believe those had to be either into turn 1 or into turn 5. 174 miles an hour top speed.
Yeah, that's going to be down going down turn 5. So you're coming down that front straightaway, or that center straightaway, I guess you should call it. And as you're cresting the hill coming into the braking zone, there's a a speed trap there. So that's got to be where they're getting the top speeds on the track.
That 174 miles an hour is fast, DJ. I mean, that's I come from a world of watching NASCAR and IndyCar where the speeds are like that all day long, but you're at big tracks with a lot of banking. This is a very hilly track that has a lot of terrain, but it's very narrow, and we talk so much about the walls around here. 174 is flying around.
And one of the things to remember on that, you're coming off a turn 3, which is a turn. You're flat out before you get, to the apex of that turn, and it's not just a straight shot down in there. You're actually, there's a lot of turn that goes, a lot of at speed arced turns that you're doing down through there to get to where you're going over a crest down into the braking zone, where you're hitting your maximum speed before going to braking, with only a few 300 feet worth of braking zone that you're actually going to use.
So I want to talk a little bit about, you show up to a racetrack for the first time. We talked about this a bit at Sonoma. Let's talk about sim racing for just a little bit, because that's the world I come from.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm still very new to the real racing world on the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
You talk about learning a racetrack and knowing where the braking markers might be, just learning where the track goes. How important is sim racing, and is it something that you use or would use to learn yourself a new racetrack?
I absolutely. Sim racing is a great way to learn new tracks. You can try a lot of different things as far as braking zones. Try to get into the into the area, if you will, to know which way to turn left and right. If you can get up to speed, a lot quicker on tracks, because you do sim racing ahead of time, or even sim practicing, not only racing but actually just knowing the track. Be able to show up and already be a day's worth of practice ahead because you go out and you're actually on the game. That much quicker. That means that you've leapfrogged for your team to be able to get good data and to be able to adjust the car as well as the driver towards being able to be more competitive.
And Road America is not yet in the SRO Competizione, which is the official simulator of GT World Challenge. Not in the game yet, but we know that Laguna Seca is, and that's another American racetrack over there on the West Coast, not too far away from Sonoma where we were a few weeks back. So if you want to check out Laguna Seca, you can go to SRO Competizione and drive a GT3 spec car around there, drive a CrowdStrike car around there if you want to. We did see the 04 back on pit lane again, so I'm not sure if they're still working out an issue. Or where they're at with that situation, but
yeah, at this point in time, it's they're not going to increase position, and they've completed 70% of the race, so they'll get credit for their finishing position regardless. So I think at this point they might be using the track time in order to try to figure out if there's things that they can or need to fix. And that's one of the nice things is that they'll be able to work on the car tonight and race again tomorrow. The bad thing is they don't really have a chance to test it, so they're probably trying to figure out what they have wrong that they need to fix before tonight.
So less than 5 minutes to go now. Trent Hinman continues to lead. This car's been out front all day long, other than a short, brief stint by the 33 Windward Racing car as it was out front during the pit stop sequence. But these guys have just been on it, and something that tells me, CJ, that they're going to be pretty hard to stop tomorrow as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They definitely are on their game, and when they're performing at their best, they're definitely very hard to beat. I mean, even at Sonoma, it took a penalty. They had to have a penalty that actually took them out of the lead, and obviously that is part of racing, especially with endurance racing or the hour-and-a-half format that we have here.
So gearing up for tomorrow for the DXTT racing cars. Obviously not a great start today. They're down towards the bottom of the order in the overall order here, heading into tomorrow. However, the saving grace of this field not being enormous is that you're starting not too far back from the front. So I think you start 5th or 6th, I think you could still very easily win.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I believe they set positioning tomorrow based upon overall lap times today, if I'm not mistaken. Is that how they do it? I believe so.
I would think so.
Yeah, so normally you'll have qualifying for the first race. That qualifying will set the position, and then based upon your fastest lap during the first race, then sets the grid for tomorrow. I don't know how the team lines up now based upon their fastest lap time overall, but I'm sure they'll be in the game and be able to start in a reasonable position and make hay, if you will, tomorrow.
They would be, I believe, in second or third place overall heading into tomorrow, based on lap time with Colin Brown's amazing outlap.
Right.
Outlap, but then immediately runs his quickest. He went purple that next lap out. So he was a man on a mission for a little bit, but that car either not quite working properly, and that might be something they're going to work on, or they're just calling it a day and just saving the equipment for tomorrow, which is probably more likely. Now, with 2 minutes left in the clock here, these lap times are over 2 minutes long, so the next time we get back to the stripe will be our last lap. White flag will fly from the starter stand, signifying you get 4 more miles around Road America, and then they'll throw the checkers and declare this Racer's Edge Motorsports car a race winner today.
Absolutely, and the one thing here is on the last lap, or going towards the last lap, you're starting to hear, especially even with these guys that have a pretty good leads, set up, Shelby and team. The interesting thing is you start to hear every little thing in the car. You start to wonder, okay, is there anything wrong with the cars? You feel every little bump in the road, if you will, because you start to wonder. You want to be able to make it back, and knowing that it's that close, you also don't want to make any mistakes. Because one mistake, you throw it off into a wall or something like that, and your win or your finish is gone. So you want to just keep your concentration on the track and on what you're doing, not the fact that it's the last lap. Bring it home safe in one play, in the same place, and that's what you can see the team here. That's there goes Hinman. Working his way around Ryan Diel, who looks to be off pace there.
Yeah, and Baptiste, they sort of dodged a bullet. They had to come down pit lane earlier for a penalty, and ended up still retaining the lead in Pro-Am, so they had a good day as well, and we'll put them in a good spot for tomorrow. Looks like that car is right back up to speed.
Yeah, I have a feeling Ryan Diel was playing a bit of a game here in that he wanted to ultimately be behind Hinman so that he didn't have to run another lap.
Yeah, this is a lot of distance, and actually I think we can find out how long we've actually run. We have run so far, let's see here. Nope, that's not right. I was going to say
300 laps.
No, that's not right. But I'm looking at the official timing and scoring, and it shows us completing 2,000 kilometers, which I think is a trip from basically here to Florida. So
I wonder if that's all the laps of the day or the weekend or something like that.
Yeah, that might be the case. But it has the competitors right, so I'm not.
Yeah, and I think what you saw there is that was a good place for Ryan to allow the leader to go through.
Yeah.
And then Ryan can follow them around because there's no pressure from the third place team, because obviously Colin has retired the car, to be able to then follow Trent around and come in behind him. You can see Ryan's kind of just hanging out behind him.
Oh! That is the 33, the second place overall car. Now we're going to have a race for second on the white flag lap. How about that there, CJ?
Okay.
The Root's going to chase down the Ward in the 33 after he looped at the exit of turn 3. Now we got a race on our hands.
Now we got a race at least to finish this one off. And
that's like smelling blood in the water for a great white shark for Root. He's going to see that mistake and charge, and now the tire's hot, flat spotted, maybe covered in grass on the second place car. Game on, race on for second.
Yeah, and we saw Root was in the mix of it at Sonoma, and just because he was running a different class didn't matter to him. He stayed on it and stayed right there. And I have a feeling that, exactly as you said, class or no class, he's going for second overall.
And flashing the headlights, that's really nothing more than a distraction tactic. But
absolutely,
I am sure Ward in the 33 and I looked in his mirror and probably rolling his eyes a little bit. But that's a legitimate tactic. If you can get the driver to look up out of off the racetrack and in the mirror, you're distracting him and can make a mistake as Hinman comes up the hill, and the Racer's Edge Motorsports team, Shelby Blackstock and Trent Hinman, they will win the first race of the weekend here at GT World Challenge America from the National Park of Speed.
Yeah, and then we have Ryan Diel and the DXDT, coming in second in class.
Yeah, second in class for DXDT Racing, fifth overall. Meanwhile, for second overall, there's Ward and Root chasing up the hill. Not quite enough legs on that Porsche to catch the Mercedes in the closing moments here. Still one more corner left, but that I will give Ward credit for jumping right back out there and finishing off the lap. He did a great job.
Yeah. scuffed up tires or whatever, he jumped right back to pace because Root wasn't going to allow him anything different.
And checkered flag for second and third in class. And Rodrigo Baptista in the number 1. That's the GT3 Pro-Am car. He will win that category and bring home a 4th overall. And Colin Brown will be podium in GT3 Pro-Am and 6th overall. And they're going to get another chance tomorrow to turn things around and maybe get themselves a victory. They were so close at Sonoma in terms of pace and the way that things could have worked out, but not quite.
Yeah, absolutely, and I know that that DXDT expected to have a 2 cars on the podium, but I think the intention was to have at least one of them on the top step, and that's what we'll expect to see tomorrow is DXDT, the CrowdStrike Racing team, and the home team, if you will, of David Askew taking up the first and second places tomorrow. So that's what we'll be looking for.
Yeah, so before we get too much farther here, because we got interviews and things coming, your social media, where can people follow you and find you?
So I've got CJ Moses Racing over on the Facebook side of things. The best thing for me is actually CrowdStrike Racing. A lot of the content and things that we have, we actually try to pull together into the CrowdStrike Racing, both on Instagram and on the Facebook side, and a little bit on LinkedIn even.
Yeah, so again, make sure you search hashtag CrowdStrike Racing on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook to get yourself connected and keep yourself here for tomorrow's event, because we race again tomorrow, 1 o'clock p.m. tomorrow afternoon. Here's some recaps. This is the issue we talked about earlier in the race here, CJ, and again, the car contact here where they were 3 wide.
Yeah, it's a hard one. I mean, I think the cars are just way too close together while they're under braking. I think that's one of those ones you have to slow down if you want to see whose fault it is. But they're honestly, I think from a fault perspective, I think it's a racing incident. Nobody intended for that to go down. So shake it off, fix the cars, come back tomorrow, run it again, and make sure that there's a little bit more space there next time.
And there's the battle for the race lead. Some good racing earlier on, stretched out and had some strategy later in the race. We'll have a look at our results here in just a moment. But again, we're going to do this again tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock, and we'll have Kevin Boehm here tomorrow. He's coming off of 2 wins in his TCA Honda Civic SI, so he'll be excited to join us tomorrow, and make sure that you're tuning in. Thank you so much for joining me here today, CJ. This is a blast as always. We saw a little bit of everything today in this
Absolutely, yes. It's been my pleasure. I definitely appreciate it. We've seen people get engaged, and we saw a little bit of argy-bargy between our team here at DXDT and CrowdStrike Racing, but tomorrow we'll go at it again.
Well, make sure you stay engaged by subscribing to the YouTube channel right here at CrowdStrike Racing, and like them on Facebook, follow on Twitter, and all the social media things that you do, and make sure that you tweet hashtag CrowdStrike Racing to ask any questions that you'd like to ask Kevin tomorrow. As we see the field pulled onto pit lane here, we'll go over our results and talk to some drivers here in a little bit. But final thoughts, Road America Race 1 here.
It's been an eventful one. Started off obviously not so great for our viewers here on the CrowdStrike Racing side of the house. It wasn't the outcome that we had expected, but quite honestly, there was a lot of excitement and good recovery by the teams. And we'll come back and give it another shot tomorrow, with hopes of taking it on to the top step of the podium.
All right, so we've got cars pulled onto the pit lane here. There's 63. That is Ryan DL in the DXDT Racing car. You see just underneath the left headlight there, a little bit of some body work to redo before tomorrow. There is the 93 behind them, Blackstock and Hinman, who dominated the race today with Ward and Root behind them. Second and third in class. They're lined up actually third and second right now with the Root car in the Porsche. And we've got lots more racing coming up this weekend. We've got some more TC racing to follow as well. And you're going back out there again for a third race tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll be out in the morning tomorrow. Around 9 o'clock, we'll go out and we'll race for another 40 minutes and try to bring home another podium.
And you can watch that right here on the CrowdStrike Racing YouTube channel and on the CrowdStrike Racing website. So make sure that you're tuned in there because you can follow along with CJ's journey tomorrow afternoon, and also see if Kevin can go 3 for 3, which would be pretty cool.
We're all rooting for him. He's deserved the wins that he's gotten, and he's had a great season so far, and let's see if we can't keep up his winning ways moving towards a championship.
Here's a look at your race results. Blackstock, Ward, Root, Baptista, Askew, and Brown in that order. And you can see the different driver lineups. I think there's a couple mixed around there, but and then the GT Sports Club cars, the bottom 4 in that listing there, and we'll re-rack them, restack them, do it all over again tomorrow.
That's the wonderful thing about the multiple race weekends. We have a chance to, if you have a mistake, you get to do it again.
This is showing practice 2 results, at least it says at the top right. So, well, maybe it is a practice for some, and tomorrow they can go for the real win. And we'll hand out the real trophy tomorrow when Colin Brown
there you go
takes the checkers. So there is, I think that's
Max Root.
Yeah, Max Root lined up there. And I think what we're going to have you do, CJ, we're going to let you go and get on with your day. Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll see you around the paddock as you get back on racetrack tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to come and enjoy this wonderful race.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, CJ. We're going to still be on air here just for a few minutes to hang tight, and we'll be back in a moment.
10 seconds right there.
Well, you got, once again, the Racer's Edge duo of Shelby Blackstock and Trent Hedman in victory lane overall. And you guys had a little extra competition in the silver class here. You guys, you and Indy were side by side there at the start, Shelby. How important was it to get the jump and take the lead there right at the get-go?
I thought it was very important. It's always really important in any race to really see if you can get in the front and really take command of the race, because then you can kind of gauge your pace from there instead of playing follow the leader. To be honest, I didn't even know he was next to me. All I saw was a big puff of smoke behind me, and I thought he either missed his brake zone or whatever, and then as soon as I looked to my right, he was there. So good, clean racing. We had a good race. Car was really, really good, and this Acura GT3 Evo is awesome.
Definitely. You've been having that on display all season long. We'll have you step to the side and bring Trent in. Trent, another excellent performance. I do want to talk to Shelby. He's got a famous family, Trent. You've got a little bit to live up to there. But for you guys, a little bit of a bounce back on the team side, I have to believe. You had the results because you didn't have the class competition at Sonoma, but there was some unfinished business, was there not?
No, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, there were some items outside of our control that kind of nipped us in the butt at Sonoma. So there was definitely a desire for redemption here at Road America. But as you saw in qualifying, it was a lot tighter than I think ideally we wanted it to be. But at the end of the day, Shelby had one hell of a start there. Really good move on the outside of 3. The Racer's Edge Motorsports guys gave us a great NSX GT3 Evo today, as they always do. It was all about execution today, really. Just execution and making effective setup changes. Obviously, yesterday was compromised because of rain. We didn't get a whole lot of testing time. So these boys just keep getting better and better, and we're glad to be along for the ride with them.
Looking forward to seeing what you guys have in store for us tomorrow. Congratulations.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Ryan.
So again, thanks for joining us here on the CrowdStrike Racing YouTube channel for the first race of the weekend for GT World Challenge America from Road America, the National Park of Speed. Tomorrow we go racing again at 1 o'clock. Still not quite done for the day. We've got a couple more videos to show you before we're out for the afternoon. But again, I appreciate everyone dropping in here. Again, my name's Kyle Heyer from SimTV, and we'll be back tomorrow with Kevin Boehm from the CrowdStrike Racing AWS TCA car. He'll go 3 for 3 in the morning. Make sure that you're watching on YouTube to follow along and catch Kevin going for his 3rd victory of the weekend. Thanks so much for watching, and hang tight for a few more videos, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Hi, thanks for having me be part of this CXO virtual experience. My name is Adam Saul, and I'm part of the Mercedes-Benz USA communications team that supports the Mercedes-AMG Motorsport Customer Racing Program. And the car you see right here, this beautiful CrowdStrike Mercedes-AMG GT3, is the latest example of the top-tier car running in SRO championships all over the world.
Flagship and headliner event in our championship is the Blancpain GT World Challenge America, utilizing the global GT3 platform. Now essentially these are the dream street supercars that everyone would love to own, but they have pure racing adrenaline pumped into its veins. Massive amounts of grip on hand for the drivers, provided by advanced aerodynamics such as this big rear wing. When we move to the front end of the car, you can see the aero effect as well. Big front splitter, massive front dive planes, really allows the drivers to attack the corners. Now when you combine this with the advanced grip from the Pirelli P0s, they're still trying to wrestle over 500 horsepower to the ground. And if they should need it, well, they have electronic aids on hand, ABS brakes and traction control. When you combine this race car with top-tier race teams, world-class drivers, it provides a great spectacle for our fans.
This is an Evo car. It's the newest car that we have available. It stands for Evolution, short for Evo. And this was the first one here in North America. George and Colin debuted it at COTA, Circuit of the Americas, in March, just before the world shut down, and it did really well. They got on the podium twice, and it's been very successful ever since. And the DXDT racing program with CrowdStrike, as well as the car that David and Ryan run, the number 63 car, that's been a top-tier team with us throughout the seasons here in the World Challenge powered by AWS. This car will produce about 500 horsepower as delivered, and then the series will come in and they'll fine-tune some rules here and there to base the horsepower. It's a 6.3 liter V8 engine, which is actually not available on the street car, but when they were evaluating what would work well at the tracks around the world, they decided to stick with that engine. It's the same engine that was in the very successful SLS cars that ran 5 to 8 years ago and won races all over the world. That's a hallmark of this car, is it does really well in the corners, and it also does really well on a long run. So the perfect conditions for us with the Mercedes-AMG GT3 is clean and green. We don't want to see a yellow flag. Traction control, ABS, it's also available on both the GT3 car and the GT4 car. And then within the series, that's how much those driver aids are allowed to be used is usually determined by each series. What is cool about the Evo is that this car is more drivable than any other generation of Mercedes-AMG motorsport race car, production-based race car in history. Everything from a more rubberized steering wheel on down to better traction control and more improved ABS. It's all been done to make sure that drivers can still race but be relatively comfortable even within the arena of competition. It'll never be like driving your street car, but if your driver doesn't have to worry about not fitting or not being comfortable or being too hot or can't reach the pedals, you want to get all that off the table. This car checks all the boxes in that regard.